Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fuji Guys channel. I'm Gord of the Fuji Guys. The Fujifilm X-T20 is Fujifilm's newest mid-level mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. In this video I'm going to go over some of the top features, explain some of the dials and controls on the camera, and give you some tips and tricks, so stick around. The X-T20 features a 3-inch diagonal touchscreen LCD. This allows you to control many camera features similar to your smartphone or tablet by touching, pinching, or swiping the screen. This feature can also be turned completely off. In the picture taking mode, you can choose between touch to shoot, or touch to focus, or just change the area, or turn the screen off simply by touching the upper right hand corner. When you're in touch to shoot, as soon as you touch the area, the camera will automatically focus and then capture the image immediately. Choosing touch to focus means that the camera will focus on the area that you choose, and then you manually push the shutter button to capture the image. Area will choose the area, but it won't focus the camera just yet. It will wait for you to half press the shutter button and then capture the image. Or you can turn that off. When you're in the playback mode, similar to a smartphone or tablet, you can actually swipe through the images, and you can pinch to zoom up and maneuver around as well. To turn this feature completely off, go into the settings menu in the camera, to the button dial setting, and then on page 2, you can turn the touchscreen completely off. Now that will not work. Turn it back on again, simply reverse that procedure. The X-T20 offers the ability to record movies in various resolutions, including 4K at 4 different frame rates. To make these adjustments, go to the settings menu for movies. Here you can make your choices as far as the different resolutions and frame rates, as well as where the autofocus is and things like whether it's being recorded to an external recorder or not. Once you've made your choices, rotate the command wheel around to the movie icon. To start recording a movie, press the shutter button. To end the recording, press the main shutter button again. In addition to the PSAM settings for exposure, the X-T20 also has advanced SR auto mode. This is great for novice photographers. This will optimize the exposure and the focus settings from 58 different presets. There are also 14 user selectable scene position presets if you want to have a specific setting like sports or landscape. To enable the auto mode, all you have to do is flip the little lever to automatic. It's in SR Auto Plus. If you want to change to a different scene position like sports or landscape, just a matter of rotating the front command wheel to your choice. You can either press the shutter button, at which point you're ready to go, or you can hit the OK. If you choose a different setting, simply rotate the front command wheel to your new setting. The X-T20 offers a number of exposure options, including SR Auto Program, Shutter Priority, Aperture Priority, Program, and Full Manual. For Program, slide the lever back off of the automatic, have the shutter speed on A, as well as the lens on A. For lenses like this one that do not actually have the aperture ring, it's a matter of rotating the rear command wheel until you actually see P, or Program, on the screen. For Shutter Priority, simply take it off of A on the shutter speed dial, and you can actually dial in the shutter speed that you're looking for. To be able to get to the 1/3 and 2/3 stops around any given demarked location, change the front command wheel, and you can get to the 1/3 and 2/3 stops around that shutter speed. Alternately, for aperture priority, for those lenses that actually have an aperture ring, just take it off of the letter A, and you can actually turn the ring to wherever you're wanting it to. For lenses like this one that do not actually have the aperture ring, now I control my aperture using the rear command wheel. And I can choose my entire range of apertures. If I want to have both aperture, it be in full manual, and control both my aperture and my shutter speed, so it's just a matter of leaving this off of the A and then taking the shutter speed dial off of A. And as you can see, when I'm changing my shutter speed, my exposure is changing. Because it's a mirrorless camera, you can actually preview that exposure control directly. The X-T20 has a number of autofocus options, including a number of focus points, whether single autofocus, zone autofocus, and wide tracking autofocus. Here's a rundown of the options. There are two options for the number of actual autofocus points, either 91 or 325. To change, simply go to AF/MF and then scroll down to number of focus points. By default, pressing up on the D-pad will allow you to choose between the autofocus mode. Choose single autofocus point for a very precise, zone for a little larger area, and then wide tracking for the entire area. Once you choose the AF mode, you can move the AF area by first pressing on the down on the D-pad, and then you can move the focus point around. Change the size by rotating the rear command wheel. When you're in single autofocus point, you have 5 different sizes of autofocus area. When you're in the zone, you have a choice of 3. Press OK to make your selection. The X-T20 has the ability to shoot continuously. This is great for shooting in action situations. Here's a rundown of a few of the options. On the drive dial, you'll see continuous low or continuous high, CL/CH. You can preset what the frame rates are for either of these settings. To preset those frame rate settings, simply go to the camera icon in the menu, then to drive setting, and then you can choose for CH and CL whether you're shooting at 8 frames per second or even higher, or 3 frames per second up to 5 frames per second. Turn the drive dial to either CH or CL, and you'll probably want to use continuous autofocus. So on the front of the camera, flip the little lever over to AF/C. I'd suggest you use the zone focus. That'll allow you for a little bit larger area when you're working with the area. And you probably want to change the size of the area as well. You have further options for continuous autofocus. Go into the autofocus, manual focus menu selection, and from there you can choose autofocus custom settings. There are 5 different presets, and with each one there's a little bit of an explanation and an example showing you the different choices that are available. Once you've made your selection, press the back button and start taking pictures. The X-T20 offers time-lapse photo options to create time-lapse videos. You can also use it as a multiple shot self-timer. To set this up, go into the menu, to the camera icon, to interval timer shooting. Here you can now choose how long it is between each of the different images. So I'm just going to choose a couple of seconds for this example. And then you choose how many images you want to be captured. You now would set up how long it is before the first image is captured. You can choose 5 minutes or longer if you want, up to 24 hours. So I'm just going to move my little friend here a little bit each time. So there are my 5 images. Now when I play them back, you can see I've created a time lapse. After the images are taken, you can import them into your computer and then use the optional software such as iMovie to create a time-lapse movie. To use it as a multiple shot self-timer, you could set the interval for 10 seconds or less and then position yourself in the frame. You can delete any unwanted or setup shots in the camera, either later in the camera or on the computer. The X-T20 has a number of wireless functions and options when used in conjunction with an iOS or Android smartphone or tablet, including adding GPS coordinates to your images, remote image capture, and image transfer. I've configured the function button of this particular camera to be my wireless settings. So all I have to do is push that button, go into wireless settings within my device. On the Wi-Fi section, I then have to choose the Wi-Fi connection that the camera creates. Once that hooks up, I can start the app. The first time you connect your camera to smartphone, you will need to confirm that it's okay to talk to that particular smartphone on the camera. I'm going to add geotagging first. So what that's going to do is going to add the current GPS coordinates from the smartphone to the camera. So now any images that I take subsequent to this will now actually correctly include all the GPS coordinates. Starting the app again. And again, I just need to select the X-T20's wireless network. Start the app, and from here I can do remote control. As soon as the camera connects up, the screen will go black, and now I can actually see the image that I'm going to create on my smartphone. I can double tap to change focus. I can do things like change the exposure compensation. This all depends on the mode that you're working with in the camera. But I can also change things like the film simulation, as well as the white balance, and even the self-timer. Just a matter of sliding this little lever over, and now I'd be recording a movie. So let's go ahead and take a picture. To play that picture back and all the other pictures, all I have to do is hit the playback button within here. And all of the images that you see on my screen are actually still on the camera. Nothing's over on the smartphone just yet. I can select multiple images if I want to. I can preview them, viewing them up large. Or if I want to, I can select all of the images. By default, it's a 3 megapixel file that transferred over. You can configure it so it's the entire resolution. However, that's going to fill up your smartphone a lot faster. The images are transferred over, one at a time. It takes a few seconds. Once these images are over, let me exit out, and I can show you. When I do exit out, the camera will actually power down. So now those photos are here on my camera roll. To transfer images that I've already captured with my X-T20 over to my smartphone, I simply go into the playback mode and then hit the wireless settings. Go to my smartphone and I choose the network that the camera creates. And after it connects, I can start the app. And I can either receive images one at a time, or I can actually browse images on the camera. The browse images on the camera is similar to what you saw in the previous part of this video. So I'm going to receive. I'm going to pick images one at a time. So now I can scroll through my camera and choose the image that I want to actually transfer over. And then I hit OK to transmit that image one at a time over to the smartphone. And let's choose this guy as well. So now I've got a couple images over on there. Once it's done, as you can see, I can push back or cancel, at which point it disconnects. And those images are stored here over on my camera roll. There he is. The electronic viewfinder and LCD screen have several different modes and display options, allowing you to set them to different settings. There's a built-in diopter adjustment dial to the left of the EVF, allowing eyeglass wearers to adjust the focus of the EVF. The default setting is eye sensor, so when you have your eye away from the screen, the LCD screen shows up. When you bring the camera up to your eye, it actually changes to the upper screen. Pressing the view mode will cycle through to the next ones. First is EVF only. Now the EVF is always on. Next option is LCD only. Again, the LCD screen will always be on. Next is EVF eye sensor. The LCD screen will remain off and the EVF will only turn on when I bring it up to my eye. One more press and we're back to eye sensor. The other button that will modify the display is the display back button. When you press that, normally you have the same displays on the EVF and the LCD. If I push the display back button, first thing happens is all the information is removed. So at that point I can concentrate on the image and frame it exactly the way I want to, and make sure there's no distracting parts to my image. Pressing the display back button again will show the various exposure options, including ISO, F numbers, and a number of the different options within the color settings and parameters are. Pressing the display back button again will return it back to normal. After I've taken an image, when I'm playing the image back, normally the EVF and the LCD have the identical screen. A lot of the same exposure settings are shown across the bottom of the screen. I can press up, and that same screen showing me a thumbnail of the image as well as a histogram and some of the basic exposure details are shown. Pressing up again shows things like the lens as far as where the settings were for the particular lens, the lens I was working with. It'll also show where the focus point is. In this instance, it's right dead center. Pressing the up button again will return me back to normal screen. Pressing the display back button, first time around, will actually remove all of the information overlay. So again, I can concentrate strictly on my image and make sure that I can look at the entire image. Pressing the display back button again shows that same information where I'm looking at the exposure information. Pressing another time will actually allow me to choose my favorites. If I'm going to be using the Fujifilm image transfer software that's available, I can actually rate my image, and then using that particular software, we'll be able to view the images and view how many stars I've rated it afterward. Pressing one more time brings me back to the primary display screen. The X-T20's electronic viewfinder and LCD display can be customized with various icons to suit your personal styles. Things like electronic level, histogram, battery life, remaining exposures, and more. To add or remove any information icons, go to the Setup menu and then to Screen Setup. On the second page is where you'll find the Customize options. Here's where you have a choice of 4 different pages of different icons that can show up on your screen. I personally like using the electronic level, so that way when I'm taking mountain shots and panoramas, I actually ensure that the horizons are nice and level. A lot of people also like to use histogram to ensure that their exposures are correct. And if you're not using movies, you can actually remove the movie size and information. Once you've made your choices, hit the back button, and all that's reflected automatically in the change. Now I have a horizon level to be able to make sure that my pictures are nice and level. The X-T20 offers the ability to customize many of its buttons and even the rear command dial. In total, you can customize 6 buttons plus the rear command dial. To review what the current settings are and to make changes, press and hold the display back button for a couple of seconds. Here you'll see a schematic of the camera as well as what each button is currently assigned to. You toggle to the right to be able to make changes. And there's actually 5 pages, and you can choose from a number of different functions, and if you want to disable a button, you can actually choose none. I like to be able to change my ISO fairly quickly, so I'm going to make the top button my ISO setting. Make my selection, press the back button, and now by pressing on the top, I can quickly change my ISO. There's a shortcut. If you know the button you want to change, you can press and hold that button, and it brings up that same menu. If I normally use auto exposure lock and auto focus lock at the same time, I can combine those two into one button, and then that frees up the other button to customize it to be something else. So those are some of the top features and functions in the Fujifilm X-T20. Hope you enjoyed. If you should have any questions about this video, feel free to leave them in the comments section. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look for us on Twitter @Fuji Guys. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Until next time, I'm Gord of the Fuji Guys. Thanks for watching.